Hello and welcome to HSE News Behind the Story. My name is Tristan Fluhr and welcome back to episode 2 of this series that's covering the seniors of HSE student media. This episode we're focusing on the stories, the people, and what really kept us around. Student media isn't easy. It's difficult, it's pressure-packed, but we love it nonetheless. There's higher leadership than any of us could have expected doing, and that sometimes leads to an editor position. Our editor-in-chief of the yearbook, Peyton McVeigh, sat down with me. We talked a little bit about what it was like being chosen as editor-in-chief.
Be editor-in-chief in the end?
Yeah.
Honestly,
Like, where did you see yourself going? Where was the trajectory when sophomore Peyton started this?
I just wanted to be an editor. That's kind of the big goal in here. If you want to really put your heart and soul into it, you want to be an editor. That's kind of what everyone says. So I thought my end of the line was sports editor, which I got my junior year. And so I thought, next year I'll just get sports editor too. I love it. I'll keep it. But for some reason, they've moved me on to editor-in-chief.
I don't know what they were thinking there.
I don't know. It's crazy. Lost their minds.
In the world of journalism, you need a strong editor or editor-in-chief to make sure that your publication is right, to make sure you're getting the information across to your audience. Luke and Peyton have done phenomenal jobs of this year. We write a lot of stories. We're journalists. It's expected. But there are always stories that always stick with us. Ones that are important, one that we got to meet amazing people, or one that we just kind of love the entire process. Here's Liz and Kat with some of their most impactful and favorite stories they've ever written for HSE.
I think the State of the School cover story I did, I believe, my junior year, because that actually got this room redone. That's what officially did it. And I had difficulty writing it because the person I was writing it with, she would be here one day and then I wouldn't be here and the next day.
Yeah.
So, but it got done and it got real stuff, real change, so it was nice.
My favorite story, without a single doubt, was the human trafficking story.
Mm-hmm.
It was something I wrote for the school paper last year, and I got to interview my aunt. She works as the company leader for a nonprofit called Cherish that helps with human trafficking
Oh, really?
and people who dealt with sexual assault. They mainly work with children, but they can help with anyone between the ages of 1 to 99. So I got to explore that, and I got to learn just more about it. And that's something I'm passionate in. I want to help people, and I want what I do to help people. So if I can talk about it, an issue that we try to brush aside and pretend isn't happening, then that's what I think is important.
Journalism can be messy. It's not always fun, but it's the job that needs to get done. And that's something that we all know. But when done right, real change can happen. As we saw through Liz and Kat's stories, their writing and their telling of a story sparked change. And that's honestly the power of journalism. But to be a journalist, I've always said you have to be crazy to stick around with it more than just a few years. So, why do we stick around? I asked the group. Let's hear what they said.
Part of it for me is, of course, when I start a task, I'm always determined to finish it. So I knew if I'm going to commit myself to this, this has to be, as good as I can make it. I should be a good journalist if I'm going to continue doing this. And once I made that choice, it also kind of developed, for me to really just have a love for the subject. As we talked about before, that just love for truth and kind of exposing the truth is my favorite portion of it. I think that's always remained true.
The people, like I said earlier, the people. I've made a lot of friendships in this class, and I feel like if I left, then they're all voided. But I really enjoy the people. I really enjoy the grind and the hustle. I enjoy learning new things. That's one of the things that I think I excel at, in my opinion, is learning new things.
I wasn't originally planning on it. I did my first year and I was like, I can't do this anymore. But it was just the lure of this being so special that I was asked to join, and that this is a room that other people can't go into. This is the pubs lab. And
It's true. A lot of people don't actually know that it exists.
Exactly. And just doing the creations and having all the friends that I had.
That's a deep question. I feel like it all probably goes back to the people in here. Like, yes, I do enjoy putting it all together in the end, and I would love to see from 10 years and now what I made in this moment, but it's just this group is so powerful, and I really know that I can go to any one of them and ask them a question. They'd answer me honestly and always be there for me, so I didn't want to leave them in the dark and leave this group.
You said it yourself, I'm crazy. I loved it. There's really nothing, I can't say anything bad about it. Sure, there are times where it's difficult and I'm stressed out of my mind and I'm probably ranting to my mom, but
I feel that.
at the end of the day, I love what I do. And you know what they say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
I mentioned earlier that journalism isn't always easy. Sometimes, as a journalist, you have to cover tough issues. Here's Kat on a little bit of what that's like.
That's why we have to write about them. I understand that I have a lot of privilege. I'm white, I was raised in a very high income family. I live in Fishers, Indiana. I realize the privileges that I have, but I've also been through a lot of rough experiences in my life. I've been through just a lot of stuff that sucks, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I know that it gets better, even when I don't want to admit it. So if I can show other people that it can get better, and if I can talk about these things that people don't want to talk about, to show somebody that, hey, somebody out there cares about you, somebody out there knows what you're going through, or can empathize with you and help you realize that you're going to be okay. If I can do that, then I consider myself a good journalist.
To navigate these tricky and sometimes controversial issues, we have to have strong advisors and strong people that push us and support us and tell us when we're wrong. And that's what's the great thing about our advisors, Jordan Klobusnik and David Young. They're people that have our backs no matter what. Here's Evan on what his relationship with the advisors is like.
Well, I would say if it wasn't for Mr. K, I wouldn't even be in SSN, because he put me in the class. He's like, you need to be in this class. And like I said, that was probably one of the best decisions of my life, because I didn't really know what it was before, and I don't think I would have joined it if he hadn't told me to. But yeah, I think being able to, the connection with the two teachers is not the same connection that you would get, say, in a math class.
Yeah.
It's different. They don't even call themselves, teachers.
They're advisors.
They're advisors. Yeah. It's a professional relationship with adults, and it's a professional relationship with the students too.
Yeah.
But it's also it's hard to explain, because you're having a professional relationship, but they're also your friends.
But make no mistake about it, student media is by the students. I mean, it's part of the name. We write because we're the people that experience it. We're the people that are there. We're the people that are capturing a moment in history. And really, there's no better piece of that than the yearbook. So here's Peyton on what upholding that piece of history is like.
There is definitely some pressure, because I always try to capture the moments that are overlooked. Like, yes, if we look back in old yearbooks, we see the same football pictures over and over and over. But what you don't see is maybe the little freshmen in the stands who are wearing their masks and scared and don't know the chants yet, but you want to get their picture because they're going to look back and be like, oh, wow, look how much I've grown since then. So it's little moments you have to realize to capture, not just the same thing as everyone else.
Luke has watched these programs grow. He's watched people develop. He's watched journalists blossom out of just normal students. But one thing that Luke and I both have a connection in is that it takes time to really kind of see where people are best at, to realize the strengths and weaknesses. And he shared a little bit about that.
I think some of my challenges is just not taking the time to understand the people around me, like their specific skills, because there are times when all the work can't be delegated to one person. Like, there's been times where someone else is doing a lot of work, or times where I'm doing a lot of work, and like, you don't know the people around you well enough to know which specific skills can be delegated to them and which can be improved by them, which is kind of a hard thing to ask. Like, it's always kind of hard in like a newsroom, figuring out like when you can ask for help, because there's always people around you. But it's kind of a blurry line between, am I relying on everybody else in the staff too much? Like, should I be doing this myself, just working a bit harder? But the way I've overcome that is, just kind of taking more time, especially this year, to just work with people in class more, instead of just, working on whatever content during classes, like just making sure that I'm in communication with whoever's on my page or stuff like that, and just figuring out who, enjoys certain skills the most.
Peyton and I are two of the longest tenured staff members in HSE pubs, and looking back at our time in pubs, we've realized that we've actually witnessed a lot of growth, not just in a specific class or in people, but just student media as a whole. And Peyton and I talked a little bit about that. You have an interesting perspective in that you and I think, are the longest running members out of any one of us. I think we've been in it the longest since sophomore year, first semester.
Yeah.
So I think you and I have been in the longest, and we both kind of gotten to see
How things
really
progress.
every class grow. I mean, obviously SSN from the ground up, and then a whole bunch of other classes. And I mean, the newscast is completely different than what it was when we started, and all that kind of stuff. So what do you think has been the most rewarding thing about that process, and what do you think has been the most challenging thing about that process?
Watching all of us grow. At some points, it's definitely just very frustrating, because you either feel like you're repeating yourself or having to do the same thing over and over, and just, I'm sure you know what I'm saying, but you feel like some people just aren't on your side, and it's just tiring.
I know the feeling well.
Yes, so that's definitely the challenging part, just to keep trucking, kind of. The most rewarding is honestly, like what I said before, just seeing it all come together in the end and being grateful that you have that final product, whether it be this podcast you're going to make, or the whole page in the yearbook being done, or the whole newscast being sent.
It feels good when it gets done.
It's
it
a
feels
relief.
it's an adrenaline high.
Mm-hmm. All those 276 pages flowing away to the printer.
And that's it. When the pages get sent, when the videos get uploaded, when the streams are done, that's the end of our story, at least for now. At HSE, as us seniors, our time is right about over. At the time I'm recording this, we just sent the yearbook a few days ago. But we've realized that we have a lot of reflection to do, and that's exactly what's going to happen next episode. We're going to take a stroll down memory lane. We're going to look back at what happened, we're going to laugh, we're going to cry, and we're going to reminisce on the great times that we had in student media. Thanks for listening. HSC News Behind the Story is a product of Hamilton Southeastern High School student media. It would not be possible without our advisors, Jordan Klobusnik and David Young. I thank them for all they have done for this project. I also want to thank Kat Collins, Luke Bisesi, Peyton McVeigh, Liz Moodispaugh, and Evan Miller for giving their interviews this episode. This episode was edited and produced by Tristan Fluhr.